Okay, today what we're going to do is go over roofs. So first thing I want to do is grab my floor plan that I created and copy it over. Once I've done that, I can highlight it, and what I like to do is change it to another layer that doesn't get used that often so that I can come back and delete this later. Once we have this copied, we can go ahead and start working on the actual roof plan. So first things we want to do is create our offset. Now, depending on the style of house you're going for, you could have no offset or have an offset that's possibly 2 or 3 feet or bigger. To keep things simple, I'm going to stick to an 18-inch offset. I recommend you follow whatever instructions your instructor for the class has given you. In this case, I'm going to go with 18 once again because it is a lot easier. I've created some different scenarios here on the floor plan so you can get different experiences with your roof, that we can see different things. And then I'll go over the major roofs, or the 2 or 3 major roofs that we're going to be using for this project. So once I have my offset, I'm going to go ahead and select my offset, and then I'm going to switch it to be for my roof. Alright, so now that's in my roof layer. Let me switch to my roof layer. Alright, now one thing I want to do once I have my roof offset is figure out which is the biggest roof, or which roof would cover the most square footage in one shot. Alright, in this case it's going to be pretty simple, it'll be pretty straightforward. Depending on the floor plan you're using, it may be a little bit more difficult, but mine would be from this corner to this corner. So from this corner to this corner. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a rectangle. That way I can see visually which one it is. Alright, and just so you guys can tell the difference, I'm going to come back and just change this to another color just so it can make it so you can see the differences. I'll go back and delete these changes to the colors when we're done. So this green box represents the biggest square footage in my floor plan. From here I have to decide, do I want the main roof to be a hip roof or a gable roof? Alright, if you recall from previous lectures, your hip roof is going to be the one that has all 4 sides sloping. Your gable roof is going to only have 2 sides sloping. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with a hip roof first. So what I want to do is I'm going to draw a line. I like to start from the bottom left, and I'm going to draw a line at a random distance at 45 degrees. Alright, once I have that, I'm going to mirror it across this rectangle. And then I'm going to trim my lines where these 2 slanted lines meet. And then I'm going to mirror them across to the other side. Where these 2 roofs meet is where these 2 points meet is where I will connect them with a ridge. Alright, so I have the hips of my roofs being these 45 degrees, and I have the ridge being this horizontal line following the overall width of my building. Alright, now one thing to remember, the ridge typically follows the longest side of the building. Alright, so if you notice my green rectangle, the longest side is laying down horizontally. Therefore, my ridge would be parallel to that face. If the longest side would have been vertical, then my ridge would have been vertical. Alright? So once we got that done, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do this little roof on the side. Alright? And let's say in this case I want it to be a gable. So I want this to be a gable. All I have to do is draw a line from the middle and draw it back to where it meets my hip and then trim the excess. All right, so let me zoom in just so you can see that. So I have this line right here. Once I've done that, I can draw a line at this edge, at this back edge where this roof meets the main roof at a degree of 45, and then mirror it over. All right, where these two points meet, I trim them, and I trim the excess of my ridge back. All right, so I have my ridge. This piece here is at a lower elevation, so it's going to and it does not line up, the edge does not line up with this exterior face, so you're going to see the transition of where this roof is going back, and then it hits this edge, and then it transitions to going horizontally. All right, so it's running backwards, it's running away from you if you were standing in front of the building, running away from you, and then it turns to go sideways. All right, now I want to come to this smaller roof over here on the top left. And this time I want to do a, let's do a hip roof. All right, so I'm gonna do a 45, or I can just copy this line. I'm going to mirror it over. Be very careful when you're copying lines, because if you mess up on one, the rest of your drawing is messed up from then on. All right, so I have where my two lines meet. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to copy it back to where the edge hits the main roof, and I'm going to connect my ridge. Now, let me get this name here out of the way. Now, with this, where this edge meets the roof, if you notice, this roof lines up with this roof. So because they line up, we would have to trim the excess, and it would seem like it was one giant piece. Okay? Ignore this green line. I'm still leaving this green line because I need it for construction purposes to work on the rest of my roof. But this roof would run continuous because the edges line up. So we trim off the excess. There is no jog or turn in this space. It just goes to a smaller roof and keeps running back. When we get to elevations, that'll make a little bit more sense when we start projecting these to be elevations, and you'll see how the roof ends up looking. All right, now that we have that one, we can come to this back portion. On this back portion, I'm gonna go with I'm going to go with a Dutch hip roof. All right, so what I'm going to do is I need to create my rectangle just so I can know where this spot ends on the other side. So it ends right there. I'm going to copy this slope here. I'm going to copy this sloped line here. All right. And then typically I would run this back until they meet. So I just did that just to show you, but on a Dutch hip, it's going to be one of those roofs that has a combination of a gable and a hip along the same edge. So what I'm going to do is offset a distance of, let's say 24. No, let's keep it consistent. Let's go 18. So I'm going to offset a distance of 18 for this line. All right. So this line is going to have 18 inches worth of roof coming up. And then once it hits this, we will trim off the rest. Grab this piece here, delete it. I'm going to connect these two lines. And then at the middle, I'm gonna run it back. I don't know where it ends, so I'll need to copy this slope back here, copy this slope back here, and then where these two ridges meet is where those two hips meet is where that ridge ends. Alright, now that I have that, I can come back and delete this rectangle. I can even delete this rectangle. Now that I have this, I'm going to offset another 18 inches so I can have another piece of overhang. And because this is going to be above, I'm going to need to break this line. Extend it. And this line will be hidden because it is under the view of the overhang that's right there. So let's put that in a, okay, so I'm gonna go with building below. Alright, so select these and switch it to building below, just so it can be a hidden layer that's representing that it's under. What I'm going to do to this roof here is I am going to do just a simple gable. These two would have the same face, we would continue running. And we are done. Alright, now the last roof I want to go over with you would be in this corner in case you had any windows or situations like this. What you would want to do is you want to make a rectangle that goes from this corner, or that goes from one corner to the other. You have to make sure you have to make it seem like it was still a regular rectangle. And then what we're going to do is we're going to copy this corner here, mirror it over. Where these two points meet is going to be the main ridge for our roof here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this a little bit backwards. I'm going to copy back this location here to give us our ridge. Then I'm going to come back and delete these two front lines because those don't actually exist there. Delete this box, and now I can draw from this point to that point and this point to that point. So if you had 3 sides there, 4 sides there, I mean not 4, if you had any odd shape here that isn't a square, that is how you would go about doing it. Whether it was the 3 sides, if it was 4, 5, 6, whatever shape you have here where it comes out of the slant, flat, slants off again and goes back into this shape, going back into a regular style roof, this would be the way of going about it. Alright? Now that our roof is done, we can come in and start labeling. So I can come in with some annotations. Let's see, let me switch my layer. Where are we? Alright, so I'm going to come in with some text, and I'm just going to copy this one over and change its layer just so that it's easier for me. And I'll come in here and say that this is a slope of 7 on 12 You would use whatever your instructor asked you to use. Come in with some dimensions. Alright, so come in, set my dimension for my offset, call it typical. Alright, so if you notice I had put in a dimension and it came in exploded. If you run into this issue, what you need to do is type in DIM-ASO and switch it from off to on. And I just saw something in my dimensions where I need these to be architecture ticks, not arrows. So now when I come back to do a dimension, now it's one piece. I can come in, typical, put it in a couple of locations. All right. And then last but not least would be my roof for my entry. Now I left this for last, mainly because that one is going to be a little bit trickier. Depending on the instructions of from your teacher or from your instructor, you were probably instructed to make this roof higher than the rest of the structure and the rest of the roofs. So because of that, when you come to bring this one in, it's not going to go and just lay in at this edge because it does not line up with that bigger roof because it is higher than it. So it's going to come back further. And since I don't know exactly where to put it yet, I'm going to leave it back there. And I'm going to come back and modify this portion later once I have done my elevations and see where that roof lands. All right, so for now we draw it like this and just leave it floating, and then we'll come back and lock it in place to the correct distance when we finish off with our elevations. Once you're ready, what you will do is you will copy the roofs for the lines for your roof, get any dimensions and text that we created, copy the perimeter, we will copy this off to the side. We grab these lines here. And make them all to be building below. Now we can go and do our leader. I see this little line here. I can go in and delete that. I can copy this arrow. Mirror it across. I can now copy these two, and then I will rotate them just so I don't have to be creating and creating later. I just made one and then copy them to where I need them. Alright, this would be your completed roof plan. Alright, make sure not to delete this other one. We will be using that one to create our elevations. This is what is expected for you to turn in. If you have any questions, you can email me or email your instructor, and we'll be able to get back to you